with the Missoula Forum for Children and Youth. So I'm Leah Fitch. I am the outreach coordinator for the forum, and this is, go ahead.
I'm Anna Semple. I coordinate Healthy Start, our early childhood coalition.
Hi, I'm Brandy Tyree, and I coordinate the Missoula Underage Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition and the Missoula Prescription Drug Task Force.
And also, this is...
I'm the program support specialist over at the forum.
And we are housed at the Missoula City County Health Department now, so big new change.
Yeah. And just a note that MCAT is recording due to a grant that we got from them, so thanks to them. And so I was also thinking that because we have such a small group today, that maybe we could just kind of go around and say who you are, and also if you, if you have any kids or if you work with kids at all.
I'm Rita Pastore, and I'm the Director of Development at Opportunity Resources. And my child is 31, so I've had experience getting him that far safely. And I work with adults with disabilities.
Okay.
I'm Susan Nelson. My children are also grown, but I have 2 grandchildren and looking for lots more. And so I want to have a conversation and learn new things. And so thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm Krista Clausen with the Missoula Chamber of Commerce. I'm their program event director, and I have a 17-year-old daughter at Big Sky, and I have a freshman in college in youth. And so this is very relevant to me as a parent.
I'm Stacy Evangeline. I just moved here. I'm an environmental health and safety specialist at Daly's, and I have a 12-year-old son.
Great.
My name is Samantha, and I do not have any children, but I work with children at Big Sky High School.
My name is Nate Arcan. I used to work at Western Montana Mental Health Center. I worked with a lot of families who had different kids, and they were definitely having issues with that. So definitely get a little more.
Great.
I'm Kayla Warren. I'm with the health department, and I do tobacco prevention.
And Hannah's actually volunteering with us tonight, but Hannah, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Hannah. I am from Ethiopia. I'm a new graduate student at the Clinical Mental Health Counseling. I am volunteering for the forum, but I have experience working with children with disabilities.
She's also going, she's the TA for the program that Anna and I went through at the University of Montana. It used to be called the Intercultural Youth and Family Development Program, and now it's just Global Youth Development. I think it's a good change.
Yeah.
It's a lot shorter.
I figured we're putting on cover letter.
All right, well, again, thank you so much for being here tonight and taking time out of your day. This is just a little bit about what we're going to be doing tonight. We're just going to talk a little bit about the Missoula Forum for Children and Youth and what we do. And then we're going to be talking a bit about the substance use in our community, the science of prevention, and then also the power of parents and other adults. Because not everybody here is a parent, but a grandparent, aunt, uncle maybe, or working with kids. So what do we do at the forum? This kid is questioning. Oh, we don't know. So basically, this is our mission. So we build and maintain a supportive environment for collaborative and proactive work to help Missoula prevent substance abuse and other problem behaviors, as well as grow healthy and resilient children and youth. But the main thing that we do is really we build coalitions, and we do that with partnerships with many, many different people in Missoula. So for instance, Kayla Warren, she does the tobacco prevention, so we partner with her. We partner a lot with Western Montana Mental Health Center. We partner with law enforcement, with judges, with people that are just interested citizens, other parents. But we really do this on the request of people in the community. And so we're really trying to create the structure where prevention work can happen and where community change can really happen. So really imagining this is our child or our youth, right? So building them up. so that they can be successful and healthy and resilient. This is just kind of showing exactly kind of what we do. So actually, if you imagine up on top of that, the Missoula City County Health Department is kind of above that. But the forum itself is just more of kind of an umbrella organization that we started about 22 years ago at this point. And so we really are, we have 3 different coalitions at this point, but we've had many different other coalitions just kind of as community need arises. But our main coalitions that we have right now are the Missoula Underage Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition, which Brandy heads up. And that is really looking at how can we help change our community to really help underage substance abuse, help prevent underage substance abuse. And then we also have our prescription drug task force, which grew out of growing concern about prescription drug use and misuse in Missoula. And really, it's been a really great collaborative work with the pharmacy school, with also law enforcement as well, and really trying to, you may have heard of some of the things that they've been up to, like trying to have drop boxes all around Missoula so that people can dispose of their unused and expired medications. You also see back there, there's some really great tools. So we have disposal bags where people can actually put their unused medications in the bags and then put water, not butter, and throw them away in the trash. Now you can't put it away, you can't throw them like down the toilet because that's actually bad for our water system. So really great, just useful tools. And then we also have Healthy Start Missoula, which is really looking at early childhood and what can we do to help young children and their families so that they can become more resilient kiddos. So, great. So I was hoping that maybe we could just turn to your neighbor or to other people. And I wanted you to kind of say, like, one, what brought you here tonight, whether it's your job or, you're very interested in the topic. And then what do you think are the most significant impacts of substance use in our community?
I'm here because I'm a chamber. I know you're ready to start because I'm a 12-year-old. Because it's Jim. Because, the place I work he always wants to be first. Do what you think.
Okay, we would like to hear what you guys have to say. So, if you guys are okay, it's a small group, so I'm hoping you guys are okay with sharing. But what brought you guys here tonight? Yes.
I was on the chamber committee when we kind of came up with this idea, so that kind of brought me here. I have a 12-year-old son, so he's right at that age where he's getting introduced to drugs at school, and we do talk, but I would like to have more information on how to talk to him. He's a good kid, and I want him to stay a good kid.
Hopefully we can get that information, some of it, too. Anybody else?
Don't volunteer your brother. He didn't let you go. He didn't.
She brought me, but I was also interested when she brought up the topic. I don't currently work for Western Montana anymore, but while I did work there, I worked with a lot of people who were struggling with adults who were struggling with mental health issues and co-occurring disorders like substance abuse, and a lot of them had no contact with their kids anymore. And I just think about that presence gone and how that affected them up and coming through their lives, and it's not easy. So I don't really deal with the adolescent side of it, but I know that it's a whole circle thing. It just perpetuates itself if it's not treated. So.
Anybody have any thoughts on the most significant impacts of substance use in our community? Sounds like Nathan that you've already experienced some of those.
I was just having a conversation with someone today. We hire a lot of people from the pre-release, and me and this guy were talking, and he was just sharing how when he grew up, his parents were alcoholics, and that led to him getting into drugs and getting into trouble. So like he was saying, it's a cycle. more drugs lead to more drugs and more crime and, yeah.
And has a significant impact on the family. And then of course it plays out in the community and all of the community institutions like schools, et cetera.
So far-reaching, absolutely.
And just from the medical aspect with the opioid addiction and overdose, and it's concerning.
Absolutely, yeah. We're actually, we didn't list it up there, but we actually have, that Anna and Randy are heading up a neonatal abstinence syndrome for group as well, that is looking into.
For those of you that don't know, it's for babies being born to moms using opioids. And a lot of people hear that and think like, abstinence, is
Yeah.
it suicide? Is it like, yeah, so helping babies that are going through with that withdrawal process and preventing it upstream.
Is that a big problem?
Yes.
So when pregnant mothers come in, are you drug testing them? Do you know ahead of time?
No, we could go on about that for a really long time, so let's talk afterwards, but that is the screening issue is a really big deal with that, because it could be that moms don't realize the painkillers that they're taking are affecting their babies, or some of them are dealing with substance use issues that maybe they don't want to be screened for, and maybe would avoid prenatal care if they knew that would happen, but at the same time, we're missing a lot of people by profiling, so it's a big controversy.
Yeah, and actually have some information too on like just the cost of how it impacts hospitals. So you guys mentioned a few of these, but I wanted to kind of give some realities to the situation in Missoula and Montana. So in Montana, there are 250 deaths due to drug overdose per year. And times that by 10, that's the amount of emergency room and inpatient admissions each year. And so that costs us, just in terms of hospital emergency department admissions, $143 million in Montana.
And one thing, just to put the deaths in perspective, that's more than drinking and driving, drug driving, heroin, cocaine, meth, and homicide. I feel like, even though we do have a serious issue with suicide, that suicide's in that number. But I feel like we talk about a lot of those other issues, maybe more freely. And I think the overdose one is something we're trying to get the word out, because it is a pretty powerful number. 8 years ago when we started the task force, it was 350. So I don't know that we've had any impact on that, but it's nice to see the number going down a little bit.
In terms of substance use disorders itself, they estimate that about 80,000 Montanans struggle with substance use disorder. And that's according to the Montana Healthcare Foundation and DPHS. But they also estimate that only 10,000 actively receive treatment.
Is this including alcohol?
Yes. So when we say substance use disorder, most people have used the word addiction before, but we're really trying to move in the field towards saying substance use disorder, seeing it more from kind of this medical perspective as opposed to kind of a moral perspective, so as a disorder. And so the 10,000 can really be one that we only have about 32 state-approved facilities in Montana, and thinking about like 80,000 Montanans, and there's only 32 state-approved ones. And so that's part of the issue, and part of it is stigma, right? Like, so if you feel like, hey, I can't go and admit that I have a problem, then it's that much harder to actually go and get treatment. And this is what we were talking about too with NAS. So the average hospital charge for Montana newborns, so without NAS, it's averages about $6,800. It's still a lot of money. But with NAS, the average is $34,000 for one birth. So, and just to note, there's only 2 state-approved facilities in Montana that serve pregnant women. So,
Treatment facilities?
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I guess we should just add, not because treatment facilities don't like pregnant women, but it's very, it's It's very difficult with a pregnant person, and you have to be at a medical facility and to have somebody have their own withdrawals and their baby taken care of. So we're working on that. Treatment facilities, like pregnant women, it's just extremely difficult to have that kind of facility and medical staff.
We're going to skip this one just a little bit because Anna's going to go over this in a little while. Don't get that. So Brandy's going to go over a little bit about addiction or substance use disorder itself.
Thank you, Anne. So one thing about, I don't know if you're thinking this or not, but we definitely are here to talk about how to talk to our kids. We just really feel that it's important to frame the issue. So when you're talking to your kids developmentally, they have some of these questions about what it is, how it affects people. And I also think that the more, I don't know, again, for me, the more you understand something, the more it's like, yeah, I really should talk to my kids about this. I know before the community came and said, do something about having a task force, I hadn't really thought about where I kept my medication, and I had small children at the time. So that's one of the reasons that we're taking the time to frame this for you. We'll get to the talking, I promise. So when we talk about this, again, addiction is hugely important to talk about, and substance use disorder, because one of our things and the reason we want to prevent substance use so much in young children, it's not because it's wrong or it's illegal. Those things are fine, but it can lead to permanent marker. There's a very strong possibility that it can lead to addiction and substance use disorder down the road. So I have a question for you. So, and I'll pick on Sam because I can. So Sam, this is Sam, Samantha. And this right here is Samantha's normal day, normal life. Enjoying being a great sister, and enjoying her dogs, and enjoying working with high schoolers. This is her awesome life. But some stressors come along, and Sam decides that she would like to, what's a substance you'd like to try, Samantha? Besides meth? Not even once.
Cocaine.
Sounds great. Okay, so, and this example of substance use disorder works for almost every substance except meth. Meth really is a substance that is a creature all to its own. So when Samantha decides to use cocaine for the very first time, how high do you think she will get? How altered of a state will she get?
All the way up.
All the way to the top. Next job. Okay. When the cocaine comes out of her system, it's a pretty short-acting drug. Where do you think she'll come back to?
Below the line.
Below?
Where she was.
Yeah, very possibility. Oftentimes, you come back to normal day. And what we talk about with kids is, if you think about it, Samantha's thinking, okay, I tried that, kind of felt pretty great. We don't lie to kids. Drugs work, right? They're designed to be mind altering, and they alter your mind. And so, if you try it, and it feels different, it feels good, whatever, but you didn't get kicked out of school, didn't get arrested, nobody found out, you've survived, right? It's really easy to think, well, maybe I'll try it again. So Samantha tries it again. How high do you think she'll get this go around?
Just as high.
Super close, super close. And again, everybody's different and depends on, how good grades you're buying and all those great things. When she comes down, where do you think she will come down from?
Below baseline.
Yeah, exactly. So you start a little bit below. And this is maybe where, I don't know, maybe you missed school that day, maybe your parents do find out, but not so far your life hasn't been terribly disrupted. Okay, so we're catching on. So she is like, this kind of doesn't feel that great, but it's not too big a deal. She uses again, what do you think happens? How high will she get?
Not as high.
Yeah. So we see this pattern of not as high. And so if you think about it, this was awesome. This is when all the, dopamine, thank you. All the dopamine's rushing through your brain. We get this from exercise, lots of reasons why dopamine comes through us. and we're at the highest we can be. And then we use it for a while, and we're not really feeling that. So if you're not feeling this, what might be some options? If you like this,
Do more.
do more. What else?
Try something else.
Try something else? Absolutely. And then you see kind of a pattern of it gets a little bit lower. Use it again. Again, maybe something else. I know. And I just want to be, we did choose cocaine. That's extreme, which is a great example. But this is also pretty much how alcohol works. You know, again, when kids ask, alcohol is a mind-altering substance. It's legal, but and I don't fully understand tobacco and how it works like I should. But tobacco is highly addictive. Nicotine is highly addictive, and kind of the same process. I can't even imagine trying to quit smoking. So you go, you kind of drop a little bit lower, and maybe by now, Samantha, maybe she's lost her job. You know, maybe there's been an intervention. Maybe she's been arrested. Who knows? But maybe it's still just her own personal life. What happens is, in order just to function, what does she start doing? Using. Yeah.
Stealing.
You start using, right, and easily crime. So when you look at this, what do you see? If you're thinking about kids and why it makes us nervous that they might think about using substances, what do you notice about substance abuse disorder?
Creates depression.
Yeah, definitely can. Definitely downward, yeah. This, after a while, becomes Samantha's new normal. And what we know about substance use disorder, is that your new normal, it's not, I'm sorry, I'm so used to talking to kids, but it's not because your parents don't love you. It's not because somebody doesn't want to stay in a relationship, doesn't want to keep their job. It's because this is what they need to function. And what we know is that it can happen to people, and also with addiction is, I don't know you, but most of us say it's not gonna happen to me. I can have, a glass of wine, or I can try cocaine once, or whatnot. But we don't know that it won't happen to you. We know some of the risk factors with substance use disorder. But lastly, what I always, when we talk to kids, is it sort of hits home that it's hard. You try something once, and you really just don't know what's going to happen. We don't try to scare kids. So we don't say you try, you drink once and you're gonna die, or you're gonna, have addiction the rest of your life. Because if you say that and it doesn't happen, they don't believe that there's any consequences. So this is just how we like to explain substance use disorder, because for me it really hits home of kind of just how visually one action can lead all the way down the path and changing your everyday life. Is that, any questions? Okay. Thank you, Samantha, for getting help and being awesome.
I'm really glad you did this.
I've done that many a time. Okay, Ms. Leah?
Yes. So, of course, thank you. So we wanted to talk about the teenage brain and why we would be so concerned about kids using substances in general. So I really love this. I really like this love lobe, and then the judgment gland is very small. But what we find when teenagers and young people use substances, we know that the brain is not fully developed, especially their frontal lobe. And the frontal lobe, you guys know what the frontal lobe? I am not a brain scientist, and there are probably people in here that know way more than me. But what does the frontal lobe generally do?
Emotion, is it? I can't remember.
High cognitive function.
And regulation.
That's pretty good. I'm a nurse, I know.
It's really the one that really helps you make decisions, right? And think ahead, right? Like, so if you're making a complex decision, you're really thinking ahead. What are the consequences? So they're more likely, because their frontal lobe's not developed, is to have riskier actions, right? So they might not be thinking about the fact that, if their friend is driving drunk and they get in the car, they just want to be, they want to be friends. Exactly. So And it also, because the brain is not fully developed, that substance has a higher probability of actually doing some irreversible damage as well. And then the other part of it, because in adolescence, you are actually more prone to developing substance use disorder, more so maybe than Sam, because you're a little bit older, right? So when anybody under the age of 18, and actually the frontal lobe isn't developed until the age of about 25. So, but the reason behind that is something called neuroplasticity, and I'm sure you guys maybe have heard of some of that. So neuroplasticity of the brain. So you go through this in your teenage years. Actually, they found that people who just had babies are also going through a time of neuroplasticity, and that is a time of a lot of change in your brain, and it really can change the way that your brain functions. And so, if a child, if someone under the age of 18 was to take a drug, then they are more likely to develop that substance use disorder because it's actually changing the way that their brain is wired. And so compared to adult drinkers, so if you started drinking before, at the age of 21 or beyond, you're actually going to be less likely to develop substance use disorders. But if you start before the age of 15, you're twice as likely, if you started drinking alcohol, to get addicted to alcohol. Or you're 4 times as likely if you took an illicit drug that you would actually become addicted. So those are some of the reasons why we are so concerned with substance use disorder, because you're actually more likely to have substance use disorder. So, and then the other thing though, is that because of neuroplasticity, we do our prevention work with kids because their brains are changing too. So actually prevention programs can actually work a lot more effectively than with adults, right? And we know this. Right? So if you try to change someone who's a little bit older, it's harder. But if you try to change someone who's younger, it's a little bit easier. Same thing with maybe learning languages, right? So it is hopeful. But in Missoula, I just want you to know that the kids that do drink, and we're going to talk a little bit about how many kids in Missoula actually do drink, 60% of those kids start before the age of 16. So it's a concern. So Brandy, I think you were up next.
Yeah.
And we're
Do
going
we
to
get to use our whiteboards?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So, I don't know how you guys respond, the parents in the room, or if you love a teenager. So when you ask a kid, what were you thinking? The real answer is they probably weren't. It's frustrating as a parent to hear that sometimes, but that's really might be what's going on in their brain. So from ages 14 to 24 are it's called the deadliest time in your life. And that is when there is the most deaths. And so I keep thinking, okay, if I could just get to 24, how great that would be. You said 31, so you did an awesome job. But that's something with kids, is if talking about that with them. And also, especially with teenagers, the hormones that are running through their bodies and the way that the brain's changing and how they're growing. And so that with all of that going on, and then the social changes, you can see how easy risky decisions are to potentially make. We like to say that it's not about good kids or bad kids. This is any kid potentially at any moment, same with adults. It's just about decisions. So, with your whiteboards, sorry, you're just gonna shout it out. I am going to ask you a question. And so, would you please write down what you think the percentages of Missoula 10th and 12th graders who say that they were drinking alcohol in the last 30 days when they were asked this question?
So yeah, I know this seems really specific, but this is part of the Montana Prevention Needs Assessment that kids in Missoula actually take. So that's why it's 10th and 12th graders.
That's the way they word it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, got it? Mm-hmm. Yes, please. Okay, awesome, wonderful.
I thought you were gonna answer multiple questions.
I was just like, right, answer right. Oh, yeah, sorry, just one answer per. Now you can just make the average, you're good. So I'm really excited to see this because I see a range from around 30 to to 80. So if I could just ask you, Susan, if you'd be willing, and you can decline, but would you be willing to tell me a little bit more about where you came up with 80%? What you were thinking?
Yes. I have no idea, just high.
Complete.
No knowledge, no, just thought behind it.
I wasn't thinking you were hoping for a prize. So we go through data with parents and with the community, because one thing that's pretty exciting is that kids actually engage in these behaviors a lot less than we think.
Oh, that's good.
And as a parent, I love numbers, because when he says everyone's doing it, they're not. They're not. So if only 28% of kids have drank in the last 30 days, of course, we would love that number to be much, much lower. We are significantly higher than the rest of the country. But it's really exciting that these are not decisions that all kids are making. So you, I think, were the closest at 30. Nice job.
Good job.
Okay, ready? Next question. Percentage of Missoula 8th, 10th, 12th graders who reported using tobacco in the past 30 days.
And they asked this question, they asked for the past 30 days just to see like people that maybe are using it on a more regular basis. They also ask lifetime, which tends to be a lot higher, just like if you've ever tried a cigarette in your life, basically.
Nice job. Nice job.
Does that include vapors?
Pardon me?
Does that include vapors?
Ooh, we're gonna talk about that.
Oh, so maybe, yes, you should actually ask them, click another time.
Okay. I just want Kayla's answer. It's cheating, it's cheating, it's cheating if Kayla answers. Okay, so let me see, so 34,
I said 40.
15, 40, 20, ooh, okay. So for cigarettes, this first, right, cigarettes, it's 8%. So again, when we're talking about a substance that is so, has such potential for addiction and for substance use disorder, bummer number, but it's not that high. And it's really important that as we think about community members, that when these numbers aren't as high as we think, we have a lot of misconceptions about what goes on with our youth, and then we also perpetuate those misconceptions, right? It would be the same if you asked me questions about hunting. You know, I would have no idea, but if I've heard one number, that's what I would think is, you know, how hunting works in Montana. So 8%. So like electronic cigarettes, e-cigarettes, vape pens, and e-hookahs, I'll never get that right, have become very popular over the years. So what percentage of kids do you think in the last 30 days have tried any one of those products? So they still typically have nicotine in them, but we separate them out from tobacco products, but we're working on that, 10%.
So the 8% is just cigarettes, it's not chew, it's not anything else, it's just cigarettes.
Unfortunately, this survey breaks things out and
Okay,
not
so
very
we'll do that
clearly.
8 plus, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you for getting decorative. Okay. Oh, Jesus. 17.4%.
Oh my God.
And this is scary to me, I guess, because, well, we don't have full disclosure on necessarily how to look at these products yet, but there's so many of them. But I hear from a lot of kids, well, there's no nicotine in them. They're harmless. There's, you know, it's just flavored water. And I think that perception has hit kids pretty big. Again, it's not all kids, but I wouldn't be surprised if this number continues to go up for a little bit until we're able to be more concrete about how these products work.
And maybe you're getting to this, but I know in raising my 31-year-old, he historically thought cigarettes were disgusting, harmful, all of that, but had no problem with pot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I think it's perception. I think and I find that interesting. I've heard that a lot from people,
Yeah.
and I find it interesting that people don't think that that the smoke has any effect either. I don't.
Because of the cancer correlation,
Right.
we heavily started advertising that cigarettes are bad,
Yeah.
and that message has been broadcast and out there.
But I mean,
Even
it
like-
wasn't just him, I mean, it was
Yeah.
definitely
Right.
prevalent in his peer group.
And you reminded me of something that I'm hearing from kids too, is that, you know, I'd never touch a cigarette, that's gross, it hurts my skin, it hurts my hair, it's gonna affect my teeth, you know, I'll get cancer from it, but e-cigarettes don't do that. You know, they don't, one thing is they don't smell quite the same. So I do think you're right, that we have our own perceptions as to how these substances, and I'd like to say, I think we also have our own justifications. You know, I have no problem saying to kids that when an adult says, you know, hey, I can drink because I'm 21, adults, we could be pretty transparent too that it is a mind-altering substance, and sometimes we do choose to drink to, you know, relax and to not think about things. It's just true. So I think people have lots of different ideas as to what substance to use. I've heard, you know, I would never try meth, because not even once, but, you know, cocaine, no big deal. Okay, whiteboards, ready?
Kayla, when did it not be possible for kids to go into like a store and be able to buy some of these things? Because for a while there, like you could be whatever age and you could go in and buy it, right?
Yeah, January 1st of 2016.
So maybe, I hope I'm wrong. So with that going into effect, thank you, because I forgot that. Maybe the numbers will be going down. But again, before that, any age you could just buy them. Okay, so speaking about marijuana, so the last 30 days, what do you think the rate is for that? What does it sound? We could talk about huffing while you have the markers out. Okay, anything? Okay. About 18.6%.
I'm getting better.
A lot of you were close. This is definitely a number that I like to hone in on because we have a huge misconception about how much marijuana kids are using. And, you know, everybody, especially kids, sure, we could argue, do they tell the truth, all those type of things. This survey's been around for 20 years. But even if some of them weren't telling the truth, it's not as high. Everyone is not smoking pot in the town of Missoula. Every kid is not. There's a high school that's their reputation. No, that's not happening. Does it happen? For sure. But again, the number could be lower, but there's lots of kids that are making that choice. And I really admire the kids that are making that choice because pot is very, very accessible, of course. So I hear that it's definitely a harder decision because it's always around. Not always around, but can be around. Okay, last one. And again, these questions are very specific, but what percentage of 8th, 10th, and 12th graders used a narcotic prescription drug without a doctor telling them, but it also means without a doctor's prescription?
This isn't in the last 30 days, just.
This is lifetime, yeah, thank you.
Good catch on the stats.
Thank you. Okay, we have a full-fledged winner on this one. Hey, have hope, jeez. 6%. So this number, again, we wish is lower. We, with our funding sources, when we started working on prescription drugs, don't get me wrong, they care about kids and they don't want them misusing prescription drugs, but the number's not really high when you look at the other numbers, right? But because we were seeing so much death and all the things that are going on with misuse of prescription drugs, we really made the case that let's go upstream a little bit. The East Coast, I don't know if any of you watched any documentaries or read about it. What's going on with misuse of medication on the East Coast is frightening. And somebody from Washington was here the other day and they said that they feel like Montana's 2 years away from that. So we like that this number's pretty low, but again, it's pretty significant if a kid chooses. Also, the other reason we love the disposal bags is a lot of kids end up in the emergency room because it's an accident. So we know that number is, but yeah. No? Okay. Okay. So, we're done with your whiteboard. Sorry that your pen smelled. Nice job. I don't have prizes, except that you're all awesome. Okay. So I'd like you to just think for just a second about brushing your teeth. Why do we brush our teeth?
Keep them healthy.
Keep them healthy. Why do you care about your teeth being healthy? Okay, so vanity, absolutely.
That's what affects our whole body if we keep them healthy.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Use
What
them
else?
to eat.
What?
Use them to eat.
You kind of need them.
Yeah.
They're going to come in handy. Yeah. What else?
Social pressure.
Social pressure. Does anybody remember when they were taught to brush their teeth or that it became part of your daily ritual? when you're super, super, super young, right? It's something we kind of drill in you. Any other reasons? What about your pocketbook?
I was gonna say it's expensive not to.
It's expensive not to. We have a rule in our family, if you get a cavity, you pay for it.
Ooh.
I know. And it's not really fair because there is some genetic things with cavities, but anyway, I don't mean that. But it works. Yeah, it affects your pocketbook. It affects your insurance company. You guys brought up a great point about it can affect your entire body. The health of your mouth has a lot to say about your body. Our daughter has a heart condition, and any infection in her mouth could be fatal. And so her cardiologist is the one that hounds her about brushing her teeth. So we brush our teeth and we don't think much of it. Do you stand in front of the mirror and think, I'm preventing tooth decay and I'm preventing expenses and I'm, taking care of myself? We just do it, right? What are some other things do you think that we do just to take care of ourselves? Just because we do, just because we think they might, be beneficial to us?
Shower.
Bathe, hygiene. What do you think you did today just to be a little extra safe? Or didn't do today? Seatbelt. Did, right? Hydrate. What else? Hand washing? Yeah. Yeah. Where were our phones when we were driving today?
Your hands.
We do lots of things. We bring this up because, and you all are here, so you know most of this, but a lot of people think, well, substance use prevention, what is that? But we do so many things on a regular basis of prevention. If you think about it, the texting while driving, that wasn't something that we understood when cell phones really became popular, something we've had to work on. There's been large campaigns, there's been ordinances, and so it's starting to change. And that's why we just want people to think about substance use prevention. That it's as normal of a thing as the campaigns to wear your seatbelt. Working in the health department, we have the privilege of having coworkers that work on suicide prevention and obesity prevention and seatbelt awareness. But people seem to get that a little bit different than when you start talking about substance use. The other thing, when you talk about prevention, and I know some of those, not seatbelts, some of those affect me at the bottom, but you also have to think as a parent, or you don't have to, but often when it comes to substances, you sort of have to examine what role they play in your own life, right? Or seatbelts. If you don't wear a seatbelt and you're asking your teenage driver to wear a seatbelt, who knows, right? They did one study, because car seats are just pretty common for the most part, right? And so they assumed that kids would use seatbelts at a higher rate than ever before. And they're not finding that to be true, because car seats are mandatory, and they had no say over it. And then it depends on the message once you're out of the car seat. So that's kind of, I guess, just, like I said, the way that we sort of ask you to put prevention in perspective. And also, personally, these are things to talk about when you're talking often with your kids about different things that they prevent. Then substance use just falls right in that category. It's not some big, different topic. Are there any questions? Everybody gonna brush their teeth tonight? Who has teenagers again? Does your teenager brush their teeth regularly? Okay. My son seems to think he can move on from that. Okay. Okay. You want me to do the yarn? Right? Okay. Is everybody ready to get out of their chairs? Yeah. Okay. So we have an activity. It's up to you if you'd like to participate. If you'd like to participate, I think we can do it over here. I'd like you to come and we're going to form a circle. There's no right or wrong. Does this table move? Yep, that's good. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. You're always that circle though. I always have to tell teenagers, don't worry, we're not going to hold hands, we're not singing. Fifth graders especially, holding hands is not something that they find. Okay, perfect. So what we're going to do is, and I know we don't know each other, so feel free to just say, what's your name again, please? What we're going to do is we are going to use this yarn, and I will just show the example. I'm going to hold on to one end, and I'm going to say Rebecca, so she knows that it's coming to her soon. And we're each going to say one thing about our childhood that was awesome. One, it could be a person, a thing, whatever. So being able to be a part farm girl was awesome as a kid. I'm gonna throw this to Rebecca. Okay,
Swimming.
awesome.
A lot of swimming. And then just hold on to the, hold on. Oh, yes. Krista.
My favorite childhood memory is growing up next to my best friend too, so my best friend got to 42 years. That's cool. Which is rare. I don't know what I'm throwing into it. Okay, that's slack.
Camping.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Anna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say my neighborhood. There are a lot of great neighbors that lived close by.
My grandparents had a house by Canyon Ferry Lake, so spending summers out there with them. I don't know your name.
Taylor.
Oh,
I would say family reunions.
Going to my grandma's house. We always did lots of singing.
Sam.
I would say my mother.
that was what I was gonna say, but.
You didn't have her mom, so.
Someone's mom.
Showing our choices. Okay, you can, if everybody's had it, you can throw it to me, please. Thank you. Okay, so everybody keep holding on to it, please. And thank you to my wonderful assistants. So if you think about this being a kid who just really, pretty much has everything possible going for them, from neighborhood to parents to family to music, arts, sports, what have you. And this is the community. So if I throw them out here, what's going to happen? They fall through. Yeah, it's possible, right? You think about a kid that maybe just has, one less thing. Maybe they do have a parent that has a substance use disorder. Maybe they had to move a lot. What are some other things that can kind of be a bummer? Yeah, absolutely. Families changing. If they're in the same community, what happens? Yeah, fell definitely faster, right? And then you guys did a great job. Then we have a kid, and I don't really love this part of the activity, but I think this is the kid that people think of most often when we talk about substance use, that probably, doesn't have all the great things going on that a kid deserves in a childhood. What's gonna happen? So when we say it's those kids, and it would never be my kid, well, what do we think about that? Where are they all? Yeah, so it could be any kid. So now what I'd like you to do, and you don't have to throw it at the same person, I would like you to, and you can repeat if you want, but I'd like you, if you're willing, to name a person that was important to you in your childhood that you feel made a difference. You can either use their name or just relationship, or you can pass. I would definitely say my mother.
My grandma Marie. Susan.
Okay, I'll be prepared. I've never seen, that's very resourceful.
I'm gonna say my mom.
Do you knit?
Yeah.
You're a manager.
I don't know what your name is either.
Oh, that's fine. It's,
Name.
gonna come on too, probably.
Oh. Obviously, no one's probably my Girl Scout leader.
You were in Girl Scouts?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sorry, what's your name again?
I already had it.
Oh, you already had it.
Stacy, you have them?
Stacy, yes. My grandmother. Want me to give it that done? Have you had it?
No.
Ooh, nice catch.
My grandpa.
We use yarn, because again, I know I keep saying that, I work with kids a lot, so we use soft things. Rebecca?
My Aunt Kathleen.
Anna, right? And who
Yeah.
else hasn't had it? Sam, no, you have, Sam? Okay.
My Aunt Susie. Do you want that, Franny?
You haven't had it yet, sorry, I don't think you have it.
Oh, first, it goes my first.
Sorry, Ben. Okay, your mom.
She's a double string quality person.
Perfect. Okay. So, what do you think we're gonna do next?
I'm gonna put it back up there.
So we have developed an even stronger community, right? And we know that people make a huge difference in people's lives, right? So here's the kid, lots of people, what you traditionally would say lots going on in their lives, and throw them in the community, out to the wolves, see what happens, okay? But yeah, it's always random, depends on how many people, yeah? Same thing? Oh, we make it is cute, people, it is cute, the lengths that people will go to save these balloons, okay? Same thing?
White cat.
I love Adventure Ed because you never know how it's going to work. So, which kid took longer to fall into unhealthy choices? Yeah.
What kid was most at risk?
That kid, right? And which two kids fell pretty quickly into unhealthy decision making?
The big head, love,
Yeah.
the medium head.
The kids who we often hear in our community, again, that would never be my kid, that's not my family, right? And so this is just an example, I feel bad now that we have a knitter in the room that we wasted yarn, but this is just an example
Girls are rough looking.
the more good things, the more protective things we put in our community, that there's a less likelihood that kids might make unhealthy decisions, but it's not a safe one, right? Does anybody have any questions? You can just drop your yarn pins and we will clean it up later. Hey,
Good, how are you? I didn't even see you in here.
Right up the back.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so just to wrap that up, we know that prevention is a science. It's really important for us to talk about that, and again, this relates for just kind of the broader education because kids have amazing questions. And prevention is a science, so there's a very specific way to go about trying to prevent. We, of course, work with substance use prevention. And what we know is that there's specific things, is that right? Such as laws, policy. For example, a long time ago, kegers were a little out of control in Missoula, so we said, hey, why don't we track the kegs? See what adults are buying them. So we have a kegger registration. So don't buy a keg and give it to a kid because they'll know you bought it. We have, we just a couple years passed an ordinance that is the social host ordinance, and that if an adult knowingly, purposely, or should have known that kids are drinking underage, they don't have to provide the alcohol in their home, that it's a violation of the city. Enforcement, that speaks for itself. Education, talking to you all, talking to kids, doing anything that we can to, together, collectively, spreading information about healthy choices and what that looks like for people. And then youth programming. We do spend a lot of time talking to youth about healthy decision making. And then, as Leah mentioned before, coalition building. None of this could take place without all of us working together. We just happen to be blessed to have jobs that get to do that because we don't do direct service with people per se. So, lastly, is why you're all here, is we know how important parents are. We know how important one single adult is in a kid's life. And what I hear from parents the most is, he's not listening to me. He doesn't want to listen to me. He doesn't hear what I have to say. And kids overwhelmingly say they do. They are listening. I know you had a great, were you going to talk about the clear rules, or do you want to wait till we get to that slide? The stats?
Well, so basically what they found is that when we asked kids in that MPDA survey, they actually said, like, how wrong do you think it is Like, how long do you parents think that it might be for you to actually use substances? And for the kids that said, oh, I think it's wrong, there was, that they still were using at a fairly high rate. But for the kids that said that their parents, that it was very clear that their parents said it's very wrong for you to use substances, it was like 4 times like they were not using compared to the other kids. So it's the difference between just wrong, they're saying, just maybe don't do that, when I know about it or something like that, versus like, I don't want you to use substances because of this, this, and this. Then that's very clear for them, and that really makes a huge difference.
We sometimes, when I hear substances, especially about alcohol, I don't want you to drink, Zach, but if you do, you can call me and we won't get in trouble. But if you do, and it's hard as a parent, because of course you want them to know that there's safety things, right? But the first message is, it's not acceptable. It's not the way it works in our house. And what we know, and what I love about it, is it does work. Maybe it doesn't always feel like it, doesn't mean there aren't gonna be, unhealthy decisions here and there, but we just love promoting that whatever you think your kid is or is not listening to you, you might be surprised. We also know, right, especially little ones, they're listening at a much more detailed rate than you might think they are, right? So 1 in 5 parents of teens aged 12 to 17 thought that what they said would have little influence. So how many of you, if you're willing, thought that way at times, that your kid wasn't listening, that didn't matter what I was doing or didn't do? Yeah, I was going to say, yesterday? Yeah. So just to reinforce that as adults, we really do have a lot of influence. And so, it also matters as a community, what we show kids is important. And that's one thing we talk about a lot in USAP, is that it's hard. Our money, we talk about kid drinking behavior, but it's pretty hard to not start talking about adult drinking behavior in this community or this state too, and what influence that has. Okay, so lastly, just real quick, so kids, I just love working with them because they have the best questions. I really feel like there could be a TV show with them. I think there already is. So under your chair, could you please look to see, sorry, it's not $50, could you look to see if you have a piece of paper? And would you raise your hand, please, if you're willing? Oh, sorry, you don't have one? Not everybody should have one. Will you raise your hand, please, if you're willing to read?
I have a warning.
Thanks to Pam's help, what you have in your hands are direct statements from kids. And Pam and I, thank gosh, I have wonderful coworkers that bring me back, but I've got thousands of these. I mean, it's unreal. And it's so hard for me when parents say to me, yeah, Johnny and I'll talk about that on our way to college. Or we'll talk about it in middle school. So we know that with substances, it's as early as 8. Decision-making can be from the minute you get to be with them, right? But 8, so we're talking 3rd graders can handle these type of conversations. And I always say to kids, how many tries did you get to ride your bike? And usually it's unlimited, right? So it's hard for me to think, why would we have one conversation? The talk, right? Some of us in this room, that generation, that was, the talk, right? It kind of just made it seem like it was a scary, awful something we were talking about, right? So if you're willing, please raise your hand, and I'd love for everybody to hear what some 5th graders would just love to know. Who'd like to go first? Samantha?
Are there people who can be careful with alcohol?
Okay. Susan, what would your 5th grader like to know?
How long does it take to die from alcohol?
Okay.
Yeah. Why is it so hard to stop smoking?
Yeah.
If the child gets addicted, does anyone notice or do anything?
Yeah. Anybody? Nathan, did you have one?
Yeah, why is alcohol unhealthy?
Okay. That usually ends with and legal. Kids, that's probably one of the top questions is, why are these things legal? I never have a great answer. Yes, will you share yours, please?
Can drugs be good sometimes?
Can drugs be good sometimes? Okay. We're not going to answer these questions, but again, I get excited, and I think it highlights that kids really, really want to talk about these things. So lastly, again, you all seem pretty knowledgeable about parenting. Were any of you, have you ever been nervous or apprehensive or scared about any topics talking to your kid about?
Uncomfortable, probably.
Uncomfortable? Thank you for that word, yeah. Yeah, I certainly have. Definitely the less I know about a topic. Yeah. So why do you think kids are reluctant to talk to us adults?
You might judge them.
Yeah.
Worry about getting into trouble.
Yeah. What else?
Same reason, uncomfortable, they don't know to approach it.
Absolutely. So part of the uncomfortableness is, again, if you think about the bike riding, is that we wait so long to talk about it. If you talk about making healthy decisions as much as you talk about going to grandma's, right? It's not as big deal. These are important topics. But so I just wanted to share with you, this is not scientific, but just the top 3 reasons that kids share with me as to why they are afraid, nervous, uncomfortable to talk to adults. Because I share with them how much adults really actually do want to listen. They'll get mad. That's the first one. They'll get mad, they'll judge me, overreact, all those things that parents are very capable of doing. They'll think that I'm doing it. So if Zach came home and, said, hey, well, I guess Abby coming home from 6th grade and said, hey, Mom, what's sexting? Like, I heard this word at school, what's sexting? Kids are afraid that instantly my first thought will be, she's sexting. And then from that will be more consequences, like I'll take her phone more often, or I'll monitor it more than I ever used to. So they're afraid that you will instantly jump to that they've already made that decision, versus thinking they just really want information about it. So that's something to keep in mind. And then lastly, that they're just not going to answer. And that really makes kids feel not heard and pretty uncomfortable is kind of what they say. And I can relate to that. If I asked you all a question and you just stared at me, I would feel extremely uncomfortable up here. Does that seem pretty reasonable what you thought kids are worried about? Any questions? Miss Leah?
Yeah, you want to do this together?
Well, I'll sit here with you.
Okay,
I
great.
mean, we didn't practice our whole dance.
So, I know, really when we wanted to have you guys here tonight, I know that actually learning some of the strategies to talk to kids might be really helpful. And this again can be for parents or for, anybody that works with kids or has a kid in their life. And it also, this is really applicable for a lot of topics that maybe you might be uncomfortable talking about. So some people might be uncomfortable talking about sex. So these are all, this is really helpful in general. So we found this on actually the Health and Human Services website, and it was really great. It's called the EAGLE method. And so A, always answer questions if you can. So if you don't know the answer, don't give any misinformation. And then also, you can find out together. Be brief and to the point, avoid lecturing, and avoid just talking because you're nervous. Make pauses. And then also leave the door open for more conversation. So if they did come to you, like, what's sexting? Try to answer the question, but then also ask them what else they would want to know and really leave the door open. And then also end with a supportive statement. Like, really, thank you for asking me. Please feel comfortable, talking to me in the future. And then also, if you don't feel comfortable, think about, is there someone else in their life? Anna, you are a mentor with Big Brothers Big Sisters. So could maybe if you feel comfortable talking to me, you could talk to your big sister. And then also making sure you talk with that other person and kind of see what their values are in that situation and if they align with yours as well.
And one thing, and again, you guys, it's hard to talk to small group because you already all know this, but also when it comes to having another person in their life, let them know what that relationship looks like. So let them know that if you talk to Aunt Kirsten, these are why she would tell me what you said, and these are why she went. Kind of therapist rules. So they know really how confidential that is. And then also have some type of it's just about knowing your kid, and this is from, again, age 8 or whatnot. When an 8-year-old asks you where babies come from, they're really mostly not interested in sex. That's not what they're wondering for the most part. But oftentimes we go into these long explanations. And that's why I think this example is so great, because just answer the question and then see what they want to know next. And then lastly, when kids, most of them, and again, you have to know your own kid, they're all different, and your clients and whatnot, but when they want to talk, you kind of, I feel like this is the same with partners, you sort of know when they're done with the conversation, and that's when you just say, hey, okay, great, let me know if you want to bring it up again. I have a teenager that just puts his pillow over his head, and I know we're done, and when he's ready to talk about it again, he'll approach it. So I think just thank you, Leah, for finding this. It just makes it really concrete.
Well, I mean, and the other thing is just being mindful of the age and developmental stage of your child, because, I mean, obviously, you might want to talk about with a teenager more about like how their brain actually works, and then with a kid, with a 6-year-old being a little bit different. There might be, I don't know if there's some real, the HHS.gov has some really great resources for finding about how to talk to kids, and also in terms of where they are developmentally. And I know just in terms of talking about sex, there's a lot of great books that really help you have those conversations with kids. But anyway.
Absolutely. I just want to jump in too and say, I mean, what Brandy said earlier on about, you don't remember when you started brushing your teeth, and just this comment about, when 8-year-olds ask about sex. It's the same with substance use. If you start early enough and you bring it up, they don't know that it's uncomfortable. So you get a jump start on the discomfort because they aren't thinking it is unless you're making it a big deal. So it's something that you can really do early on and not make it a big deal later.
That is so true. The other day, so this obviously what I do for a living, our kids go to Loyola. Not a lot of people know what I do for a living, but our son was getting some food at concessions, and he came up, I was working concessions, and he said, I just want to know if you had something that I could spike my hot chocolate with. And, I said no, and he goes, gosh, I gotta go find another dealer. Okay. Not necessarily appropriate, but for our family, that's normal banter. But boy, the looks on the mom's faces in the concessions just didn't get that. And I'm sure I do lots of things wrong as a parent, but Anna's just right that if it's just something you talk about, it's not uncomfortable. I mean, as they want to know more about where babies come from, sure, maybe, but thank you, because I think that's kind of one of the key points. Go ahead.
No, so there's just a few more things that we talked about, and it's actually on the back of this. So, really just, one of the key things in terms of talking with your kids is being just really clear about your goals and expectations. Sometimes families will write down what their expectations are, and you can make a family contract. There's also, if you have a system, and Brandy talks a lot with the kids, in terms of making a system with your parents, for getting out of a situation that maybe they feel uncomfortable in. Is there a text that they can send their parents? And then also practice getting out of uncomfortable situations as well. Talking in the car while doing something else, sometimes it's easier when you're not actually looking at each other in the face and being like, oh really, what do you think now? Yeah, so I mean, just really talking in the car, doing other things, playing a video game. And then think also, there is a little bit of homework that we want you guys to do before you do this, and really think about if your kid asks you, what did you do when you were a kid? Thinking about what would you actually be comfortable, telling them, and how are you going to say that? So that's really a good thing to think about.
I was getting the guilt, son wanted to come home, and he was texting me what time do I have to be home, and I gave him a time, and I get you were a kid once, and I'm sure you asked Nana to stay up much later, and I said, yeah, nothing good ever came from that, you'll be home in 10 minutes. So I did not say I handle it right, but kids definitely, they're curious about everything about your background, and some of these topics, again, you all probably have, but it's interesting that parents haven't really, for this topic, thought, well, how much do I want to disclose, and obviously age appropriately.
But now, what my mom did when she went to Woodstock, and we asked her about if she'd ever done drugs there, and she's like, oh, we were in the non-drug section of Woodstock. Also just, getting to know more about brain development and talking with kids about that. And then also sharing information. If you do have someone in your family that does have a history of substance use disorder, just talking about that and how that does actually contribute to the likelihood that they might actually develop substance use disorder as well.
I think the woman who needed to leave had an excellent point that there are kids forever. On Grizz weekend, my 19-year-old texted me and said, tell me you need me to come home. So I called her, she said, hi. I said, hi. And she said, oh, you need me right now? I said, yeah. I mean, so they need us, hopefully, you know, to get out of situations, maybe the rest of their lives. And it's just nice when they utilize that. I didn't ask too many questions and get back to that. But, so these are just tips. There's a zillion of them. And you all probably have some really great tips too on how to talk to kids. I think if we, next, right, we would love to hear about resiliency.
Yeah, so how much time do we have? 15. All right, and there's a little wrap up afterwards?
Oh, and these are, yes.
Other resources?
Yeah. Talk They Hear You is a great national campaign and in terms of talking with parents. And then Let's Face It is a Montana-based one. It's specifically about underage drinking, and it's for parents. So.
All right, so you might be asking yourself, what does an early childhood coordinator do in a substance use prevention office? Because there's not a lot of like 4-year-olds. You know, we talk about as early as 8 sometimes, but like 8 is the end of early childhood. So does anybody have any thoughts about what I'm doing in this office and how that works? You're like, oh, what are you doing? I don't get it. So basically, we know that when parents and children have a healthy, happy bond when they're little, and when kids are developmentally prepared and go to kindergarten and the kindergarten's ready for them and they're ready for kindergarten, they're going to be more attached to school, which we talked about risk and protective factors a little bit, but that's a biggie, is being connected to your school and have a positive attitude about it. And also, your brain is actually going to be developed in a way where you're primed to make good decisions in pretty much every arena. So I think you could put an early childhood coalition along with everybody's prevention group and it would be useful. But substance use, it really is definitely connected. And so one of the ways that we look at this is through childhood adversity. So when you look at the technical risk and protective factors, which we didn't go into too much because there are a lot of the things we talked about with the yarn. One of them is family conflict.
Sorry for being a science.
Yeah, it's the yarn stuff, you know. So family conflict is a risk factor for substance use. Family kind of disorganization is a risk factor. And then also on the flip side, having a healthy relationship with family is. Same with school risk. So if you're in a family that has a lot of conflict, if there is maybe child abuse or neglect, or substance use in a parent or caregiver, or mental health issue in a parent or caregiver, children's brains actually often develop differently because they are under severe stress because of that. And when we talk about these things, they seem really extreme, right? Like it's the little balloon that you see, right? Like obviously this you're going to be able to notice this kid. But when it comes down to it, here in Montana, we have really high rates of childhood adversity across the board, and it's everywhere. So we are tied with West Virginia and Oklahoma for having the highest number of kids estimated who experience 4 or more of these in their life. And we have about 2/3 of the population who experiences at least one kind of adversity, and about 17% of the population who experiences about 4 of these 8 that they looked at. So they looked at child abuse and neglect, which could be, physical, sexual, or emotional abuse. It could be physical or emotional neglect. So, sometimes emotional neglect isn't something you think about with things like this, but it could be that the parents are on their phones and gone all the time, right? And they have lots of money and they've got, their needs met in a lot of ways, but the kid isn't getting the connection that they need. They also look at, like I said, substance use in a parent, and mental health issues, seeing your mother be hit, or there's one more, seeing a parent that's in jail or incarcerated. So there's 10 they looked at in a big national study. If you want to know more about it, I could go on for like 2 to 6 hours. So we don't need to do that because we have like 10 minutes left and I wouldn't keep you that long. But the takeaway is most people in Montana and most people country have experienced these things in some level. And people can be okay still. You can have that as a part of your story, and you can build resilience to that. So, we're not going to go through all of this because we're a little bit hurried, but basically there's been a lot of research about it. Toxic stress is when we're dealing with stress that's so intense and overwhelming that it actually can damage your brain cells, your developing brain, and the way it functions. And it affects us in really interesting ways. So before we go into resilience, I'll just let you know that it can affect our fight or flight mechanism. And if you're living in danger a lot of the time, or if you're bathed in that constant stress hormones, then you're going to be a little more likely to be on the defense, because that's survival, right? That's life. It may affect cross-brain integration, which is really important for learning and things like story problems. So, you know, if you want to go to college, you have to be kind of good at doing story problems, so it has big impacts later. It can have impacts on things like executive function, so how organized you are, how able you are to make and plan out your day, things like that. So, if you want to know more about that in a 20-minute version, go to this TED Talk. She's great and really inspiring, and you come away thinking like, okay, we can do this. It's not doom and gloom. Or sign up for our newsletter, and then we give trainings every once in a while, so you can come to one of those. But resilience is really something that we can build. And we want to prevent all kids from experiencing any of these toxic stress-inducing conditions. And so that's our first priority, and my job as an early childhood coordinator is to help get the word out to parents about all the supports that are available to them so that parents are not alone dealing with this, because life is hard and it comes out of nowhere sometimes. And so the closer we can get those webs together on the net, the more likely we are to actually build the resilience in the family and build that with the kid as well. And also, people, go ahead and pass that out. We can build resilience in people who have already experienced a lot of adversity, or a little, but in a way that's affecting them a lot. So there's a lot of measurements of resilience, but we're gonna look at one really quick. It's just kind of a yes or no, did you experience this or not? And I just want you to glance through that and see what common theme there is, what you might notice.
Relationships.
Yes. Got it. So basically, if you're in a family maybe where one parent is dealing with some pretty big mental health issues, which is really common in Montana, but you had another parent that was there for you, or a grandparent, or a neighbor, you are more likely to be resilient and have fewer negative health outcomes later on in life. And one thing, illicit drug use and early onset of substance use is one of the most common effects that you see from kids who have experienced adversity. So being an adult who's in a kid's life and is being supportive of them and there for them is going to help mitigate that in a giant way, and that's the best way to do it. We are also going to look at the definition of resilience, which there's a lot of them out there. It's kind of the trend word right now. But the ability to remain calm and control when faced with a challenge is one definition that has been really researched with resilience. And that's a skill that we can build in kids as well. If you are more likely to fly off the handle, go into fight or flight mode, building this ability to stay calm and build in self-regulation is really huge. And we can do that starting with 3-year-olds, right? We can start working on that. I'm going to teach you a really quick trick that I did not make up. I stole this from Dr. Dan Siegel, and he's another great resource if you want some information about just kind of this brain development and choices and all of the great things associated with parenting and being around kids. So you guys all have this great visual aid right on the end of your wrist, so I want you to hold your hand up and curl your thumb in, and you can put your fingers down over it. So right here we've got our spinal cord coming up your wrist. We have the brain stems kind of in here. Underneath here is our limbic system, which controls our fight or flight response. And this is that whole frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex, the part that makes good decisions and logical decisions and can think about the future. That is regulating it here on top. So when we are stressed or upset or tired, or you're just kind of worn thin, this applies to everybody, you're more likely to flip your lid, and the limbic system is running the show. Logical part of your brain is offline, inaccessible, completely unable to be used. And the limbic system is going to keep you alive. It's going to have enough, adrenaline or stress hormones or whatever it takes to keep you going and keep you alive. But if you're dealing with your child, for example, and you've had a long day, it's going to be a little bit harder to have a logical response to the kid. And likewise, if your kid has flipped their lid and they're flipping out about stuff, or they're maybe a teenager that's under a lot of stress and they're in a situation where they're panicking, they might flip their lid and their logical decision-making skills, the undeveloped version that they have, aren't even accessible anymore. And so figuring out ways to bring yourself back online, you can teach this to kids. And I use this example a lot. The Parenting Place, an organization here in town, taught this to a kid that they were working with. And there was an issue with another kid, and they went to talk to him about it, and the kid just went like that. And they were like, all right, let's take this opportunity to take your side, get you to calm down, get your lid back on. And then we're much more likely, I know that when I'm in this mode, I'm much more likely to apologize for my actions, to think about how I impacted another person, to be kind and thoughtful, and to take care of myself and think about, whoa, what do I need to do? And likewise, when you're like this, it doesn't feel good and you don't feel normal and it's scary, right? And so understanding that that's a part of being a human and that you're able to take some time and take care of it, and then you can go back to being the human you really want to be, is really important. And you can talk to your kids about, like, I'm sorry, I really want to be there for you, but I'm really stressed and I need to take a deep breath. Or, there's a lot of ways you can use this to say, you know what, I didn't mean to yell at you, and I was stressed, and this is where I was, and now I'm back where I want to be, and let's have a conversation. So it goes for kids, for parents, for those of us who are neither. Well, I guess I'm a kid still, a child, somebody's kid. But you can use this in everyday life, and it's a skill that then when they're in stressful situations, they've been taught this from the time they were little, and they're able to use that when they're in stressful situations later. And you can use it if you're having those uncomfortable talks. Remember to take deep breaths, get yourself back in, and make it less uncomfortable. Just make it more natural. So I think it's a skill that's really useful in a lot of ways. This is another thing they use in some trauma-informed schools, they call them, where if you get in a fight, you can put your marker on the red zone if you're really like this. If you're in the yellow zone where you're kind of calming down, but you're like edgy and you're not really ready to be your most genuine self, put it in the yellow zone. And if you're calm, you're grounded, you're ready to talk, you can put your marker in the green zone. So it's helping build in that self-identification, self-regulation, where you get to a point where you're ready to make good decisions and talk to people in a healthy way. So just tricks like this to help people recognize when, hey, you're offline and you can't function in the way that you want to. So how do you take care of that? So one cool thing, Missoula's got a ton of resources in this, especially for young children, but inclusive of adults. And the second annual Resilience Week is happening November 12th through 18th, and there will be a whole host, about 20 different free activities that promote these skills. And they are free for parents. We don't have brochures quite yet, and they're almost ready. But sign up for our newsletter, you'll hear all about it. Free activities, everything from parenting classes, mindfulness sessions, and like a contra dance for moms and kids or parents and kids, things like that. So it's a whole gamut of different activities to build resilience in our community. So I think the talking directly about substance use as well as the building up of kids so that they make good choices, they go hand in hand, and we have so many resources in Missoula. Here's just a few other things. If you have questions about them, talk to us. And I'm going to hand it back because it's late and you guys want to go to bed. Leah or Brandy, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, we just really, really appreciate you all coming. We appreciate the chamber and Rebecca and your committee for thinking of this topic. And basically, we just kind of want to end with that we don't have all the answers. You're not going to have all the answers. There's lots of topics to talk to kids about. There's lots to do when raising kids and supporting kids and being that adult in a kid's life. And so I still sort of feel like him, that I don't know it all, but we do know that talking early and talking often has a huge impact on what that might look like. So we thank you a lot please feel free to take any resources that we have, especially any of the home disposal bags for your medication. And we're here if you have any questions, but thank you.
I have a question on the disposal bags, because I work with the cancer center. And we have lots of people that come in, they want to bring their loved ones medication back. Give them to us, and like, take medication, to one of the drop boxes or whatever.
Okay, so in